Warning: this is a very unprofessional production. The style is deliberately slow-paced and immersive. It won't provide the usual quick dopamine rush from typical modern content. Dietary and health advice shared reflects only the personal views of the author. Now let's try to relax and observe how Meyqool gets doomed.
Kilometers ago, or 1,500 miles, Meyqool started using his basic car as a mobile home to get to the northernmost country in Europe, Norway. 2 years before, Meyqool completed a similar challenge down to Europe's fourth southernmost country, Portugal. While he has slowly gotten better at finding discreet spots to spend the night, at cooking, staying clean, and continuing to work thanks to the solar energy all off the grid, there is one new element on this trip which brings Meyqool back to a newbie level: the Scandinavian weather. A cold and humid ambience that has the power to completely doom the atmosphere and render every single survival operation much more problematic. What is it like to explore the majestic beauty of Norway's severe nature while living only in a basic car? Exceptionally, before starting, please allow this slight disclaimer. While the beauty of Norway is limitless, the purpose of this video isn't to showcase sensational, overly processed images of landscapes and drone shots, nor to provoke envy. Many films already masterfully cover Norway's scenic aspects. The focus here is on a different facet of Norway's nature: the habitat and experiences it offers to solitary travelers with the wrong kind of vehicle. Besides, the sound level of a drone is way too annoying to be allowed in the public space yet. And now, back to the story. August 2, day 50. As the ship breaks away from continental Europe, carrying the CarHouse in its chest, Meyqool can't help but feel nervous, and as surprising as it may seem, even emotional. Between the hands of this machine rests all he built for shelter, locked inside his humble vehicle and at the mercy of the whims of fate. Not only that, but the realization of what he's actually doing right now, after nearly ending the trip 2 days ago, completely alone, with just a basic car to live in, on the way to such an exotic and unfamiliar place as Norway, borders on the surreal. When the seaman untied the boat, the amplitude of what he's doing almost made Meyqool cry. But it's also about the fact that he's doing it alone. Yes, the idea of reaching Norway was never completely off the table during the past 2 months, but the experience had become so demanding not only physically and financially, but also psychologically, that the vision of this El Dorado had progressively faded away like a mirage under the rain. So now that this objective is materializing, it's almost like it was never off the table, only Meyqool thought it was. Without really understanding the inner workings of it, Meyqool is following through with the belief at the core of this entire singular operation. If one decides something, then one can always find the ways to make it work and see it through until the end. The first thing one has to find when landing in Norway is the exit of a giant labyrinth. It's an actual maze which the Norwegian designed to immediately confuse every newcomer to their territory 10 minutes before starting to enforce on them very strict driving rules with some of the most expensive fines in the world. Slaloming between trucks and imaginary lanes, one must try to look as normal as possible, since there is also a border control to be expected. You just never know when. What is even more unique in this particular maze is that unlike an ordinary maze, it was designed in such ways that you can't turn back if you took the wrong way. Right now, Meyqool is relying solely on the hope that the front car everyone is following is ever slightly less lost than him. That's right, as long as Meyqool is on Norwegian territory, his name becomes Meyqool.
Country of origin, France. Purpose of visit, tourism. Name, Meyqool.
Barely a few meters into Norway, Meyqool already almost gets a first fine, falling for the first trap, a car jumping out of a line of cars hiding it. The ship arrives in the town of Kristiansand, which, in spite of its very seductive name, must be avoided at all costs, otherwise it will be the one to cost you. This town is known for its friendly parking fares and fines to newcomers who don't expect certain things to work so differently here. So, as with all correct things in life, one must get out of the human civilization as soon as possible. But as Meyqool will later find out, even this sound decision will not suffice to save him from the Norwegian brutality. First camp in Norway, 16 degrees Celsius or 61 Fahrenheit, and the immediate feeling that when the sun is not there, it can get cold very quickly. Nevertheless, finally, a land where sleeping in the nature doesn't make you a criminal. When arriving in Norway, only the ship feels like he belongs there. This land may be attached to Europe, it immediately feels like something different, an encounter with the unprecedented. One can feel that one is entering a very vast land, where the nature still has the advantage over the human. And precisely so. This is the notice Meyqool received while driving to find this spot. In Norway, nature retains the prerogative to doom your day whenever she so desires. Thanks to a law written in 1957 called the Allemannsretten, or Right to Roam, the people can experience nature even in big and privately owned uncultivated lands. There are some common sense conditions to this rule, like being at least 150 meters or 500 feet from houses, not staying more than 2 days in the same place, refraining from campfires in the summer, and of course, as you often hear in Scandinavia, leaving nothing behind but your footsteps. Except if you're obese, then you have to cover them up. So, in a territory as vast and marked by such a sparse population density as Norway, this framework alleviates a considerable part of Meyqool's challenge. But let's not get carried away. The weather will quickly reduce this advantage into oblivion. New country, new recipe. First, Meyqool launches some sweet potato, which barely need any cooking as they are edible raw. But what is this kind of fancy contraption? This Indonesian delicacy is called tempeh, which contains up to 20 grams of protein and B12 vitamin. It is made through a fermentation process that binds soybeans into a cake form thanks to a fungus of the Rhizopus genus. To propel it into the next dimension, Meyqool whips up a survival teriyaki sauce. The least sugar one can handle, shoyu, and cider vinegar, the only kind of vinegar that is good for you, as wine vinegar amounts to little more than a sugary syrup for babies. By the way, this method stands as the most advanced way to blend ingredients together, even in a real kitchen. This spot overlooks a lake, but the lake is hidden by pine trees. Meyqool thinks that Norway might be testing him before letting him access all its beauties full on. A sort of assessment to discern his character. Mackerel must be on his best behavior and control his impatience if he wants to witness what kind of person Norway is. Norwegian humans have a tradition of growing grass on their roofs, a practice called turf roof. It helps insulate the building, absorbs rainwater, and promotes biodiversity. But why do they plant trees on them too? They don't. Those trees have planted themselves there, grown from seeds flying in the wind. The rice cooked in Denmark 2 days ago is still good. Yet mackerel is not eating here. It's already the second day in Norway, and this meal is reserved for later. It's 11 AM, and after one of the nicest mornings in a long while, it's time to really start the exploration. Little does mackerel know that it was also one of the last nice ones. August 3, day 51. As with every time he leaves a camp, Mackerel has no idea in what setting he'll be sleeping tonight. At least the temperature is being magnanimous so far. As long as the sun is out and the wind is in, it feels like spring in south of France. Mackerel has been in much colder places down south during this journey before. If Denmark already felt like being in a nature reserve everywhere, this sensation is even stronger in Norway. The raw nature is clearly the dominant, the master and the host here. The human civilization is a humble part of the guests, in equal footing with all the other living beings. Surviving in a world characterized by unhospitable conditions for the majority of the year demands a substantial long-term commitment. The establishment of a settlement in an environment where the average yearly temperature is around 8 degrees Celsius or 46 Fahrenheit, where even at the lowest altitudes almost 2 meters or 6.5 feet of snow falls in a year, where the precipitation rate is one of the highest in Europe, and where humans are dispersed across extensive mountainous terrains, poses a distinct challenge compared to constructing a hut on the beach. So the humans living here have to deploy great lengths of dedication to fit their homes and everything they need to stay warm and nourished in between the folds of such a strict host. This thought causes a small but real fissure into the nomadic approach to life Mackerel has been embracing so far. One of the stratagems Mackerel has developed to find hidden spots is the park and walk technique. Walking the path before taking the vehicle there allows to assess the condition of the road and avoid getting stuck like a simple tourist requiring help from the locals to save him. This is beautiful, yet the terrain is too sloping. But more crucially, the true potential of a trail will always reveal itself through exploration on foot rather than by car. Maybe this way. Passing by from a vehicle, a path can often appear unpracticable or uninteresting. However, on foot, it metamorphoses into something different. The more time one spends with it, the more it will reveal its possibilities. Well, this could be a spot. And here we have it, the best possible spot in the area. You know it when you see it. The end of a road, your passport to no traffic. It couldn't possibly get any better. Except maybe if Mackerel had opted to drive up in reverse, this would have probably improved something. But as ridiculous as this may look, Pointing the CarHouse in the proper direction for a swift departure in case of an emergency is a rule Meyqool adheres to with an unwavering rigor. Meyqool never leaves the CarHouse without a note conveying his intentions in the local language. It's a precautionary measure in case an agitated landowner stumbles upon this scandalous scene. When the weather is indulgent like today, with temperatures hovering around 18 degrees Celsius or 64 Fahrenheit, southern Norway is an earthly paradise for immersing oneself in nature. Meyqool won't even be needing his cold weather sleeping bag tonight. The nature in Norway is pretty silent, especially at night. There is really no noise at all. No birds, no animals, no insects. Majority of the soundtrack is constituted of the breeze through the branches or water cascading in the distance. The sense of solitude is absolute and the serenity ephemeral. Good night, Meyqool. The Norwegian humans traditionally painted their houses in red, yellow, and white. This color coding originates from resources at hand and reflects subtle clues on the financial status of the homeowners. Red was the cheapest color to produce while being very effective in protecting the wood from rot. It was created using a mix of iron oxide and vegetable oils, or cod liver if you were into that kind of perfume. Yellow was a bit more expensive than red as it required ochre. White was the most luxurious color since the zinc needed to create white paint was very expensive. Within this chromatic way of brightening up the gloomy cold winter atmosphere, Norwegian house paint quietly etched the subtle narratives of their inhabitants' lives. Of course, nowadays, industrial paints are more or less all the same price, rendering this color coding less accurate. Anyone can use any kind of color, but the red has an old history, and many people still like to hint at it in spite of the risk of appearing poor. And this is how Meyqool knew that this Norwegian human, waving at him and touching her hair as he dashes by with his very intimidating CarHouse, would have made for an excellent overnight stay, provided he was a baby who needed a memory foam mattress and a natal vice infusion. The utility water tank got doomed, and this could easily turn into a real logistical problem as it is constantly needed for cleaning things. But just like in the aviation industry, one thing makes this kind of mishap much less problematic: backup items. Losing or breaking something essential like a sponge or a toothbrush or even a phone is much less of a stressful deal, knowing that another one, even of lesser quality, is available. This general principle saves us from finding ourselves on the edge of the precipice next time we lose our tampons. And while Meyqool has another water tank on the roof, this law is exactly why he made sure his spare tire is completely inaccessible under the cabinets in the trunk, turning the CarHouse into a legless flamingo at the first thorn that impales it deep within the Norwegian jungles. Proud of himself for having figured out something so advanced, Meyqool concludes that he is now deep enough within the Norwegian jungle to be able to get naked and take his first Nordic shower. However, the weird situation that is about to unfold will quickly remind Meyqool that as soon as you think you got it all under control, everything goes as wrong as possible. To adapt to the difficulty of showering on the road, one must train to not be so needy with soap. One shower every 2 days, every 3 days, and up to a week. After a few months, the gain of time resulting from a morning routine free from ablutions overrides the initial unusual sensation of the unwashed skin, which completely goes away. A day can start with no other delay than grabbing our beret. It also turns out that letting our skin return to its original balance has other real benefits, allowing better hydration thanks to our natural oils, allowing the microbiome that coats us to fortify both our skin and immune system, not to mention preserving water. And to soothe the anxiety attack of the Western brain, kindly trained to be very concerned about the sense of an unwashed body so he would give his savings to surfactants companies, the reality of what happens is that when left alone, our body is so well designed that it will revert to perfectly regulating its own odor. One will have a smell, but not a bad one. Some would even say a fragrance. Only when we render our body dependent on detergents does skipping one shower impact our olfactive footprint. When one manages to persist in the liberation from this addiction, just like any other, things go back into order, and natural well-being gradually returns. What is really great is that during this entire time we are talking about Meyqool's stench, we are watching him firmly believe that it is entirely impossible that anyone would come here, now, park right next to him in a blue pickup, and pass behind his shower with a dog just as naked as him.
Sorry, man. But there is a man after you. Don't ever pass by here again, okay?
I'm joking.
How Meyqool deploys all these treasures of efforts to appear friendly and favorize social exchanges, nobody really knows. Connecting with others from different horizons is a central pillar of traveling, and when you come back home, it's these kind of moments that you will always cherish, the memories of a real bond between complete strangers who had a positive exchange in which they learned so much. Viva la vita!